Well, hello. Come and sit with me and have a cup of tea while we continue on with this wonderful book that I have permission to read as described in part 1, Astrology, the Sacred Science, by Joan Hodgson. And my intent in sharing this is, I know I myself had wondered, what is the deal with astrology? Why should I care about it? I don't know. Actually, I don't know very much about it. Our community, wonderful, wonderful people. One of the most wonderful people in our community is Diana Bowles, and she brings astrology to life. She helped me figure out my time of birth, and it just makes all the difference, because then you know what your rising sign is and where your moon's at. And I'm 63, and I just now recently learned what mine actually are. And that helps me to fine-tune my path and what I'm doing and gather my intent and put clues together. So I thought this would be a good place today to read about. So it's about 10 pages. It's the sun and the 7 rays. As you know, I am deeply spiritual, but not religious. But I am respectful of others' intent. And I'm pointing you out here in the back garden in case you'd like to watch some birds. And it's so beautiful out today, I didn't want to stay inside. So I will be reading parts of this chapter. White Eagle teaches students to meditate, to withdraw their consciousness from all thoughts and feelings of the outer world, and to focus their whole attention on the center of light within their being, which may be likened to the rising sun. I have a bug that's very, very interested in this page. It's flying as if it were a drone. Goodbye, little bug. That was interesting. The Godmen taught that the whole purpose of man's birth into the physical world was to give him the experience necessary to develop his divine consciousness on every plane of being, until even the densest particles of matter are illumined and transformed. Christ consciousness is symbolized for man by a radiant 6-pointed star, all the 6 points of which are equidistant from and perfectly related to the central or 7th point, which may be regarded as both the beginning and the end. The beginning of a cycle of manifestation, and the end, which is also the beginning of a higher spiral. I will interject my own opinion here. I liked this because I have always thought of energy as moving in spirals. Like sometimes when people think that I am channeling, I wonder if I have in fact just went up the spiral a little tiny bit into higher self, or higher self has in the same breath has descended a little bit more into my thinking mind and my body, and I am a vehicle for that to come through. I think we spiral all the way down into earth, and we will spiral all the way home when the time comes. Okay, back to the book. The solar ray, wherever it manifests, is always the center of a system. It represents the first ray of being, the keynote, the will which commands and orders the whole. In Greek mythology, Apollo, the sun god, is pictured as daily driving his chariot drawn by 7 fiery steeds across the heavens. This is also a good representation of one earthly incarnation, a day in the life of eternity, during which Apollo, the sun, the higher self, drives his chariot with its 7 steeds, the 7 bearers of consciousness, through the physical world. The 7 steeds, or the points of the star, also represent the psychic centers in man, which are being vitalized and illumined during the course of his development. The position of the sun in any horoscope gives a key to the particular channel of consciousness which is being vitalized and strengthened and developed during the present incarnation. For the sun represents that eternal self, that shining being in the world of light, which is so much greater than the small, limited self which has to manifest through a physical body and brain. During the course of evolution, this greater self, which at the present stage of cycle has experienced many, many earth existences, creates an earthly vehicle which comes to birth under any of the 7 planets, according to which of the subtler body needs to be particularly strengthened. This will be shown by the sign of the zodiac through which the sun is passing at the time of birth. Nevertheless, the fact that a subject sun was passing through Pisces or Sagittarius does not necessarily mean that he or she is basically on the ray of Jupiter. It could mean that during this incarnation, his higher mental faculties need to be exercised to give a stronger, purer mental body. Therefore, the influence of Jupiter will be prominent because of the work he has to do. But the planet of the basic ray upon which the soul is evolving will also be subtly emphasized in many ways, possibly by being in powerful aspect with the sun, close to an angle in the horoscope, or perhaps as the final depositor of all the other planets. There are a number of ways in which this fundamental soul coloring is shown, even though in the present incarnation its powers may not be fully expressed. However, every so often in the cosmic cycle will come an incarnation when the soul has far greater freedom and opportunity to sound its own note in life. At such a time, all the planetary forces in the chart will appear to be focused into one ray, which colors the body, mind, and soul. During the earth life, that soul will be completely immersed in its own planetary life stream. According to its stage of development, it will be able to give special service to humanity along the lines of its own particular planetary ray. These are the incarnations of genius, or of exceptional service and dedication, the periods when the keynote of that soul can sound with great clarity in the cosmic orchestra. During incarnations such as this, the power of the planetary ray pouring through the personality may be such that the soul finds it difficult to hold it in control. Both the virtues and the faults associated with that planet will be unusually marked, bringing a life of extraordinary gifts and opportunities, together with apparently inexplicable, foolish, and negative actions which seem to undo all the good which has been accomplished. Such incarnations are outstanding for their intensity of experience and often for the severe soul testing which they bring. The rising sun always symbolizes the first ray, the creative word which brings life into being and orders all things. Every soul must gradually learn to keep contact with the sun within the heart, and so be able to sound its own true note, and to use in service the power of its own planetary ray. Regular meditation upon the star, with the flashing jewel at its center, will strengthen and call forth the divine will which brings the whole being into harmony. When Jesus, the master of the healing race, said, "I and my Father are one," he was sounding his own keynote, the word of power deep within his being, which made him a perfect channel for the cosmic healing rays with which he wrought miracles. In the same way, the simplest man or woman can gradually bring his circumstances or hers, or even the cells of the body, into perfect harmony by learning to focus his whole concentration on that point of light within the heart of the star until it floods his whole being with light, bringing a conscious unity with the divine will. From an astrological point of view, the sun rules the fixed fire sign of Leo and is exalted in the cardinal fire sign of Aries. As previously mentioned, it is not easy to assign to each of the 7 rays any one ruling planet, and it seems likely that the combined influence of their exaltation signs may give a key to this. Thus, there is no doubt that the cardinal quality is associated with the first ray, or that the combination of the Sun and Mars and Aries represents the first ray of being, the mind, the creative thought behind all manifestation. Yet the sun's rulership of the fixed fire sign Leo also gives its association with the second ray, the caring, teaching ray we assign to the fixed quality. The only planet which is exalted in the fixed signs in the moon is earthy Taurus. What better symbols could we have for this second paternal nurturing ray than the sun, through its fixed sign Leo, representing not only the Heavenly Father, but also the earthly Father and King and Teacher, and the moon, the Earth Mother, the Provider. One cannot really separate the two. The exaltation of the sun in fiery Martian sign of Aries has deep spiritual significance, for it shows how in man the divine light in the heart center, Leo, has to be brought into full consciousness through the earthly mind, Aries. In other words, the human consciousness must become illumined by the divine. The sun's entry into Aries marks the beginning of spring in the northern and of autumn in the southern hemispheres. And Mars, ruler of Aries and Scorpio, is closely associated with the solar fire, the great life force and energy which pours forth from the sun. The angels of the sun and Mars work closely together, giving us the will to live, the will to rise above all difficulties, and most of all, giving us the gift of joy. Joy in living, in achieving, and in using our given powers of creation. In man, Mars rules the head and generative organs, as well as the astral or desire body. When we are functioning in the physical life, it is chiefly through the astral or desire body that the solar file is expressed. And one of man's essential lessons is to distinguish between the self-will and the desire nature which manifests through the head mind, and the divine will of the sun, or that Christ self which shines in the heart and speaks in the voice of conscience. I need to take a sip of tea. I'm having licorice spice today. It's delicious. There it goes. Excuse me. Let us think for a moment of the sun and of the glorious energy and life force which pours from it. This solar ray is the ray of physical vitality and energy, bringing joyous exuberance and pleasure in life. The fifth house and Leo are both concerned with pleasure, relaxation, entertainment, and an exuberant creativity which in physical aspects bring forth children, and in a mental one, the creations of art. Anything which adds to our joy and appreciation of life comes within this solar ray. Think of it as the heart of the star, a pure ray of gold and white light which quickly turns into all shades of red and flame. They give us strength, courage, and joy. They give us the will to fight the good fight, even when all seems lost. People who are working on this first or will ray draw strength and courage from the great angels of Mars and the sun, which enables them to drive ahead with their plans in spite of disappointments and frustrations, and long after those with less determination have given up. They know their own minds unusually well, are firm and decisive in action, and are excellent organizers. Uncontrolled, this solar fire gives too much energy and enthusiasm, causing people to overdrive themselves and others. When learning the lessons of the will ray, the soul has often to feel the restraining and disciplining power of Saturn, the polar opposite of the sun. Mars is exalted in Saturn's sign of Capricorn, indicating how the fiery desires and energies must gradually be channeled into practical service to the community. I have to stop for a minute. I was thinking to myself and calling the element of air and spirit to assist to me, and the birds and the wind both kicked up at the same time. So I was having to talk louder and louder. The microphone just popped out. There we go. Let me put it back on. That was fun. I love you, little ones. I love you. Okay. Sometimes, therefore, souls who are learning this lesson may find themselves leading rather a restricted and disciplined life, perhaps in some form of government service in which they feel frustrated, and perhaps held back from promotion by older people standing in their way. The acceptance of full responsibility for one's actions and decisions, especially as they affect those dependent upon us, is one of the fundamental lessons for those learning the lessons of the first ray of will. White Eagle once said to a man who was a tram driver, "You know, you are on the ray of the sun, and you have the heavy responsibility of taking care of people, of leading them to their destination." People driving public vehicles are in a position of power and responsibility. In the past, they may, perhaps, have been kings or leaders of men, but have misused their power. So they come back, still leading people, but doing it in a humbler form of service. The deepest lessons of life are connected with love. It is sins against love and refusal to accept the responsibility which love involves that creates karma of sorrow, loneliness, or heavy responsibility. All the planetary rays can affect the soul at different levels of consciousness and will manifest differently according to which of the subtler bodies is being influenced. For instance, on the physical plane, the first ray people are the leaders and organizers in a practical sphere, always at the head of some concern or responsible for its promotion, management, or general progress, and they will be concerned with government or the law in its enforcement, or drawn to some form of military service in which they rise to a position of power and authority. On the mental plane, the first ray gives a clear, positive, creative mind, with the ability to organize and classify mental concepts and to take part in projects requiring great mental energy and creative thought. On the emotional plane, creative powers find expression in the bearing of children, through whom many lessons are learnt. Heartache and suffering through one's children, or even the denial of the gift of children, teaches the soul deep lessons about the karmic responsibilities involved in their creation and training. The wind is talking a lot today. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. This ray gives a forceful emotional body which can be overpowering to others. There will be a great need to find an outlet for this dominant desire nature, either in creative work or in some form of service, probably of a pioneering nature. Quite often, souls who have destroyed life in the past or caused suffering through their ungoverned desires and ambitions return to earth with a strong urge to devote themselves to healing and serving others. They may become surgeons, using sharp instruments for healing, or healers using the power of positive thought, who must be careful not to dominate their patients with their own powerful will. Indications in the horoscope of this first ray are the sun close to the ascendant or midheaven, especially if in Aries or a fire sign, or a strong cardinal balance in the planetary positions with Mars strongly emphasized by sign, house, or aspects. Saturn also will be strongly placed. If this is your ray, you will feel an instinctive interest in law, order, and justice. The Archangel Michael, head of all the angels, and symbolic of this ray of light and power, is, as we have seen, pictured with sword upheld or holding the scales of justice. The Romans, who were great organizers and lawmakers, came strongly under this ray, and it's quite likely that you incarnated more than once as a Roman citizen. As you advance in spiritual understanding, you will become extremely interested in the outworking of divine law through karma. You may well be taken in your sleep to the great temples of laws in the heaven world, where you will be able to see something of this great plan of life and the wonderful way in which spiritual law works out even in the smallest details of life. Your guide will come to you clad in a beautiful gold and flame color, or in a radiant white garment which seems to change to the different sun colors. He draws close to you to give you courage and strength and to help you find your own center of divine light and inspiration. You may see him at times clad in the shining armor of a soldier of Christ, because in your life you will need to develop all your inner strength to cope with the tasks allotted to you. Remember that you are learning to forge the sword of divine will, to use that creative, glorious solar ray through which the human consciousness is raised out of the limitations of the physical life, to share in the great brotherhood of the heavens. When Leo is much emphasized in the chart, rising or containing the sun or moon, when the fifth house is emphasized, or when the basic balance of the chart is of a fixed quality, the soul is likely to be working on the second ray, which quickens the heart center and causes the subject to live by the dictates of the heart rather than the head. This ray is sometimes called the ray of education, a somewhat confusing term, for the word education as it is at present understood somewhat limits the wider concept covered by this ray. In the spiritual sense, we shall define education as the nurture of living souls. The chief characteristic of souls on this ray is love for humanity. Whereas souls in the first ray instinctively desire to master themselves and their circumstances and to mold life to their will, those evolving along the second ray instinctively desire to love and cherish all who need care and help. The second ray, White Eagle calls the golden ray, could aptly be described as the ray of family, for those under its influence have the parental instinct strongly developed. They assume leadership, not through mental dominance, but because they radiate a love and a wisdom of the heart, which draws to them all who are in need of comfort, warmth, and protection. It is not difficult to pick out those in the gold ray, for by their very presence they bring hopefulness, confidence, and encouragement to others. The sun is associated with the king, yet the true king or queen is not so much a ruler as a father or mother, spiritual protector, and comforter of the people. When the second ray influences the everyday personality, we find that soul happiest in a position where it can serve a number of people. For instance, the mother of a large family, or one who mothers children even if they're not her own, is expressing the qualities of the second ray. In women, the quality of motherliness is so marked that we frequently find them mothering not only their own family, but an ever-increasing circle of souls who are troubled and sorrowful. The second ray qualities are also expressed by those who honestly try to serve the public in some form of trade, such as the honest storekeeper who tries to meet the needs of his customers with goodwill and courtesy. An essential characteristic of souls functioning on this ray is the desire for contact with their fellows. They love to be caring for the needs of others, which is another way of expressing the parental instinct. Trading with the public is sometimes carried on as much for the joy of service as for earning a living. And it is rare to find souls functioning on this ray working entirely for financial gain, for they are too generous-hearted. They must give to live, for the love element is so strongly developed. Souls in whom the gold ray influences the mental bodies are the born teachers of the race. Here we speak of teaching in the more limited sense of imparting knowledge. Such souls are not necessarily scholars, nor the cleverer members of the community. Frequently, a born teacher has some difficulty in obtaining the necessary qualifications for the profession. Nevertheless, such teachers can often impart knowledge more successfully than companions who possess greater knowledge, for they have a clearer understanding of the difficulties of young students and can present ideas in such a way that they are easily assimilated. One reason why pupils will respond to the teachings of a soul on the second ray is that they instinctively feel sympathy and encouragement emanating from their teacher, which gives them confidence in their own abilities. The more brilliant scholar who is not a natural teacher may frequently find themselves irritated by the obtuseness of the students. Is unexpressed, is subtly communicated. Oh goodness, I've lost my microphone, darn it. Oh goodness. Oh goodness. Oh, crying out loud. I'm so sorry. For the interruption. I lost my microphone. Darn it. This is the third time I'm recording today. I really hope this one is a good one. Pardon the delay while I try to get my act together. Okay. Whew. The more brilliant scholar who is not a natural teacher may frequently find themselves irritated by the obtuseness of the students. This irritation, even if unexpressed, is subtly communicated to the pupil's mind, making him feel increasingly unable to grasp the matter in hand. The born teacher, on the other hand, never feels irritable with the student's problems. The more difficult the student finds a lesson, the more teacher strives to discover ways and means of encouraging him and make the matter seem simpler. Perhaps one of the finest educationalists on this ray was Friedrich Froebel. So great was his love for children of all ages that no matter how overwhelmed he was with work, he was never too preoccupied to give full and wholehearted attention to the smallest tot who came to see him. Most of the well-known educational reformers had the gold ray dominating their mental vehicles. The Earl of Shaftesbury, which I've never heard of, who changed the lives of millions of children by his work for social reform, and Dr. Barnardo, who gave his life to help homeless children, are two outstanding examples of great souls on this ray. On the spiritual plane, the effect of the second ray is especially marked. The stimulation of the heart center and the consequent outpouring of love put the soul readily into tune with the infinite. Such souls need no proof of the existence of Creator or of life after death. Their love gives them a wisdom which casts out all fear. And no matter what arguments are presented, they know the love, wisdom, and power of Creator to be a reality. They possess a shining faith, and no matter what trials they undergo, this faith upholds them. It has nothing to do with logic, but results from an innate sense of attunement with the divine life, which is strengthened rather than weakened by adversity. For this reason, souls evolving along the second ray prove the finest religious leaders, true pastors of their flocks, good shepherds who would lay down their lives for their sheep. That's kind of weird. Their work is to be seen in all walks of life, not necessarily ecclesiastical. When we meet them in everyday life, they have a radiance about them which comes from simple faith. And in some inexplicable way, they have power to communicate this faith and trust in divine goodness to others. By their own spiritual strength, they help their companions to see the light. The brother of the second ray who enters the church rarely gives learned sermons. In the pulpit, he makes himself a channel through which divine love pours. His words in themselves may be simple and soon forgotten, but those gathered will experience an unforgettable sense of being raised for a short time above their material cares into a clearer, nobler atmosphere. They are filled with the peace of the Spirit. Reformers who by love and example have drawn millions to their particular faith are on this ray. The actual tenets of their creed or belief do not matter. The leader's gift is that putting the souls of their companions into tune, even for a brief space, with the infinite. Perhaps the chief lesson which souls on this ray have to learn, no matter on what plane, is that of blending wisdom with love. The heart center is so developed, even in the lesser evolved souls, that they cannot but spend themselves in the service of those they love. But until wisdom is fully developed, there is a tendency to spoil them through overindulgence, or alternately, unconsciously to become possessive and so handicap those in their charge. These souls need to realize that the finest service they can give to another is to help him find his own contact with divine light, and that once he has learned to do this, he must have freedom to work out his own salvation. Otherwise, this is not love, but self-indulgence. And renunciation of selfish claims is one of the vital lessons of this ray. Renunciation, I don't really know what that means. Otherwise, this is not love, but self-indulgence. I think I can get what I need to from that. The limitations of personal love must be broken and widened into universal love. Okay. For this reason, souls on the gold ray often endure deep suffering through their affections. Eventually, the point is reached where the soul lives continually in the joy of divine love, having realized the truth that in universal love there is neither suffering nor separation. Development on this ray is nearly always felt in the home life, but its subjects will also tend to repeat experiences undergone in past lives when they have held positions of responsibility or leadership. They may have been kings, leaders of groups, religious teachers, or teachers of children. Many have occupied positions of authority in convents or monasteries where there was opportunity for a wide expression of that maternal or paternal qualities. This is probably because many souls tend to turn to the service of divine love when personal love in their life has in some way failed. Many such souls have had former Chinese or Tibetan incarnation, or have been students of Buddhism. So they will express in their present lives the quiet wisdom and love of these religions. They may well have incarnated in Greece and been associated with the school of Pythagoras, who is believed to be the master at the head of the second ray. Incarnations may also have been passed in Latin countries, which come under the rule of the sign of Leo, especially Italy and France. No matter what their work or how difficult their circumstances, souls on the gold ray can at all times serve by the continual emanation of divine love. By striving continually to perfect their love and to radiate it universally, no matter what their work on the outer plane, they become centers of power and light, to which others in their environment will look for warmth, comfort, and inspiration. It is a universal law that they put into operation. By becoming centers of love, they cannot help drawing to those who need that love, and thus a group is formed, as the sun finds its planets. In this matter, the born father or mother will find their own family, even if karma has denied them children of their own. The true father and the true mother know no limits. They love all the world, and for this reason cannot but become the teachers, the inspirers, and the leaders. And that is the end of that chapter about the sun and the seven rays. And while I was reading it, my mind flashed on wonderful people in this community like Hypnicity, who wants everyone to win and has a great love for humanity in a very humble way. And I thought of Terry Renner at Hold in Your Space, and how many of us flock to her every weekday, early in the morning for our morning meditations, where we chat for about an hour before we actually meditate. A lot of wonderful people came to my mind. You know, Fatima, who is in that chat each morning. So many, and I'm not wanting to name names or leave anyone out, but Terry Renner and Hypnicity really came to mind while I was reading that. And I really enjoyed the wind and the birds. It was fantastic. And I think it's so important when I can to read these outside, because I asked Spirit and the element air to join us. And look at the clouds up there. Look at that. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So I want to thank you very, very much for bearing along with me. I'll review this, and hopefully I will be able to post this for viewing today. And I thank you for stopping by and enjoying this for entertainment purposes only video. And I look forward to your comments. All right, bye for now.